How's everybody doing? Welcome to another episode of the 26 Touchline. My name is Jacob Grobelby. We've got someone a little different today. We had Jake Simpson, a coach, in our last episode. Today we have a current player for Rogers State University. Grainger Scott is with me today. Grainger, I appreciate you joining us on the show.
Thank you for having me.
So I'm going to start things out the same way I did with Jake. You've gotten to watch a couple World Cups in your lifetime. Do you have any fond memories, either as a kid or recently, that you can think of when it just comes to the World Cup in general? It doesn't have to be a specific one, just anything you can think of.
So many. I just remember, because obviously back home, the World Cup times have always been weird. Like the kickoff times have already been 3 a.m., 5 a.m., like midnight sometimes. So I just remember, I don't have many memories of the 2010 World Cup, but the 2014, I have vivid memories of getting up and just being a bit groggy and sitting on the couch with my parents, and we'd make hot chocolates and watch games before school, and those are such good times. That 2014 World Cup, I have some great memories from that, just massive moments in games. We weren't in the 2014 World Cup, so I was supporting Argentina, obviously, because of Messi. And so we would get up and we'd all be sitting around the TV, all four of us, and just, mate, he was magical at that World Cup. So I just remember moments from that World Cup of him just, that was at the age where I was really getting into it. So it was brilliant, and that really kind of propelled my interest in football. I remember the heartbreak of that 2014 World Cup final against Germany when Mario Götze scored that winning goal. But I have so many good memories. 2018 too. 2018 World Cup was, I think the kickoff times were a bit kinder, so I think I got to watch a few more games, and it was a special World Cup. I remember watching that final and just, being in awe of how good that France team was. I wish I was a bit older for the 2010 World Cup when New Zealand were last in it, because that would have been massive scenes. All the country got behind them. But yeah, so many good memories.
And talking about that 2014 World Cup, I feel like, at least for people around our age, that's one that got a lot of people into the sport, because looking from the U.S.'s perspective, 2014 going into the group of death. In 2014, soccer was a sport you picked your 10-year-old daughter up from. But 2014, the U.S. goes into that Group G, group of death. Germany, Portugal, and Ghana are all in that group. And no one's expecting them to get any points. They make it through. They get to the round of 16. Tim Howard does his thing, gets the nickname the Secretary of Defense after putting up a bunch of saves. Ended up coming short with that game. But that 2014 World Cup, that was, at least in recent memory, that was one of the more dramatic ones, I feel like, regardless of who you were supporting or what nation you were behind. Especially, you talk about that 2014 final, dead even for most of it, 2 minutes before extra time. I remember for myself, I'm asking my grandfather, I was like, so have we ever gone to penalties in a World Cup final? Because it got that close. And then Götze just had to shock the world and volley a ball off of his chest. 3 feet in front of the net. It was
incredible. He was a player. That Germany team were dangerous, man. They were dangerous. That was kind of, again, obviously I was supporting Argentina, but they were a pleasure to watch, that Germany team. They were just a bunch of dogs, man. They just did not give up. Looking back at it now, it feels a bit soft, being that emotional about a country that I have no affiliation to whatsoever, beyond the fact that I liked Messi, lost that. But that's what you want in a World Cup final, that one. And I mean, the last one we had, that France-Argentina one, was the same. The 2010 one, the Spain, my recollection of that World Cup is pretty poor, but I do remember moments of that final, that Spain-Netherlands final. That Iker Casillas save. Iker Casillas was the guy that got me into goalkeeping when I eventually became a goalkeeper, and that save in that 2010 World Cup final was something. But that's why we watched the World Cup, isn't it?
And then you talked about that 2022 World Cup final. It's crazy you bring that up, because I remember I got up to watch that one. I don't want to say I got up early. The times, at least in the States, they weren't perfect, but they were pretty ideal. You know, if your team was playing a night game, you were waking up at like normal time, and then maybe like half an hour later the game's on. But that 2022 World Cup final, I remember Argentina's up, and then in those last 10, 15 minutes, give or take, Mbappe says, "I'm not going out like this." And I just remember thinking to myself, all the way through extra time, I'm not watching 2014 again. I'm not watching Messi come short again. That one, because 2014, like, I think I was like 11, 12 years old. I couldn't point Argentina out on a map back then. But I knew who Messi was, and that was a player I'd taken a liking to as a kid myself. And seeing him come short then, and then after that, the next few years, everyone's, well, he's great at the club level, but he can't get it done internationally. And then he finally got the World Cup in 2022. I think that was a moment for a lot of people where it was like we finally got to see that thing we were rooting for as kids almost.
Yeah, it is definitely that. And again, I say it's crazy how invested we get in someone's career. I mean, everyone knows in the world he's on the but we're still sitting at home like rooting him on. I never, and there were a lot of pundits that were saying that he will never go down as the greatest if he doesn't do it on an international stage. I think American pundits probably the main culprit of that, but I saw it in Spain as well. I never bought into that narrative, but regardless of that, it was...
The box is checked off regardless.
It's checked off, and it was brilliant to see him lift that, because you could tell how much it meant to him. And this is what I love about the World Cup, just the storylines of individual players. Obviously, that's the most high-profile one, but there are more, you know. There's always that one player that, like James Rodriguez in 2014, just was unbelievable.
Put on the map that year.
He got put on the map and got a massive move to Real Madrid. And
then in 2018, Modric did what he did for Croatia. I believe he ended up winning the Ballon d'Or later that year.
He did. And that's what...
It's not that year, like the year after, I think is what it was.
It was close, and he was on an incredible run with Real Madrid at that point as well. But yeah, these individual storylines of the World Cup with players, but with teams as well, is why we watch it. You're obviously back in your country, which I haven't been able to do for the last couple of ones. But there are other people that you're... I mean, for example, last year with Morocco, last World Cup with Morocco.
No one had Morocco getting as far as they did, let alone... A lot of people probably didn't have them getting into the elimination rounds, if I had to guess.
Exactly, and everyone loves an underdog story. So regardless of who you were rooting for, you were always kind of looking at Morocco and going, go on then. And
then, you know, you had the story of South Africa in 2010 when they were hosting. You brought up Hamas from 2014, and then a couple other stories you can think of, Ghana getting to the quarterfinals in 2010. That game had its own drama, you know, back and forth. Hand of God 2.0 with Suarez. Penalty shootouts coming just short, because that Ghana team in 2010, I don't have the best recollection of that World Cup either. I think I was, 8 maybe. Yeah. But every time you go back to it, you hear about how most neutrals had started to latch onto that Ghana national team. And even here in the States, when Ghana had just taken down the U.S., a lot of people were starting to go, this is the last African team. It's being hosted in a country in Africa. You want to see an African team go far. And if you think about it, they were missing a player going into that quarterfinal match, I believe. They were that close to getting into the semis and at the very least playing for a bronze.
Yeah, and that's part of... I was skeptical about this expanded World Cup this year, as I'm sure a lot of football fans were. It's more games, which is good for the viewer, but maybe I'm somewhat of a traditionalist. But an upshot of that, the 2018 World Cup, is there's more room for teams to have those stories, you know. You've got nations that really don't have much of a footballing presence in history that are now going to be kind of fighting for the biggest title in national football. So there's more room for those kind of stories, and that's what you want to see. And
we've already kind of seen one with these play-in tournaments. I mean, Italy just got upset by, I believe it was Bosnia, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. That was a crazy game.
No one saw that coming. And then, you know, we saw just in the world of friendlies recently, France, they get a red card against Brazil. They proceed to go beat the tar out of Brazil. I think the final score of that game was, what, 3-0, 4-0?
I can't remember what it was, but yeah, Brazil, that's what it is. It's, you get those upsets of, oh, wow, that team's really not as good as I thought it would be. Like, you look at Brazil and you see a lot of names, a lot of individual talent, but I've been pretty unimpressed by them recently. They weren't great in the Copa America in 2024. But yeah, you're already seeing it in the play-ins. That Croatia-Italy game was probably exemplified that. Not Croatia, sorry. Bosnia, Italy. Bosnia would just look like they were up for it. We were watching it in the locker room after training, and you're rooting for Bosnia because you just want to see the underdog go through. And I don't think they've been at a World Cup since 2010 either.
It might be longer. I can't remember off the top of my head.
And they were just so up for it. And Italy, third disappointment in a row, third World Cup they haven't qualified for in a row. And
it's crazy to think about that because in 2014 we're talking about Brazil has their 5 World Cup wins, the most out of any international team as of right now. And then the next one on that list is Italy. Both of those, Italy's missed the World Cup. Brazil's going, but some people are a little skeptical of them right now. I feel like there's a bit of we're starting to see a little bit, this World Cup is going to have a few of those upsets. And maybe that's a product of those extra games, or maybe it's a product of, because we talked about this with Jake in the last episode, traveling around in the States, especially across U.S., Canada, and Mexico that way, it's not the same as you see travel-wise with, a Qatar or a South Africa. The distance is going to be crazy, and FIFA's done their things to try to minimize that type of travel, but we're going to have teams who they play in L.A. a few times, and then they're going to have to go down to maybe Texas or Florida or up to Canada, down to Mexico. That travel takes a toll on you because you can't, establish we're going to stay here during the time of said tournament, but we're going to travel to games regardless, but we're going to try to stay here.
Yeah, 100%. It's going to be wildly different. I do think we'll see those upsets for a few reasons. That travel is a massive one. I think people underestimate how much fatigue you get off the travel times and the amount of travel. The climate is another one. It's going to be hot. I think a lot of teams that'll take them by surprise. I think that's another thing that you cannot underestimate, which is why I'm I'm hesitant to say it because I don't think many of them have been very good in the run-up, but I do see one of the CONCACAF teams going further than they ought to just because they're used to the climate. That could be a shock to the system for some teams.
The weird thing about CONCACAF in this situation too is the qualifying was a little different because of the 3 nations that are hosting. For one, they're the top 3, typically they're the top 3 nations in CONCACAF. Usually there's a bit of a wild card there too, but they're all hosting.
Yeah.
So they're in, and then you've got these other teams that are still trying to qualify too. It's going to be interesting to see how much of that climate does play into the World Cup this year, because we also saw it with the Club World Cup last year. Players, coaches, teams were talking about how hot it is, how humid it was, and FIFA's doing their thing with the hydration breaks. But I want to go back because you were talking about American pundits a little bit and how you need to see that highest level trophy to be considered one of the greatest. It's interesting because one thing I've gotten covering soccer is a certain aspect, a little bit more here in the States, obviously, but you see it a little bit with American commentary, broadcasting, journalism. There is a lot more. If you're not one of those teams that's, you're considered a serious contender, you're almost not going to be given the time of day. There's almost this, you're one of those teams that's going to win it all. You're one of those players at the top. But if you can't do that, there's no point in watching. I think we see that a little bit in any sport because, you've got things like, the Super Bowl is considered, it's the highest level in American football.
Yeah.
But on top of that, like they call themselves world champions at that point because it's like, people might have their own problems with it, but let's be real. There's not another football team in another country that's going to come and beat whoever the U.S. throws out there in that aspect. We just had the World Baseball Classic for baseball. That's a sport America's supposed to be one of those teams. Like they're supposed to be dominating it, but the last few years, or the last few times they've had it, they haven't won the World Baseball Classic. They haven't won it since, I think it was 2017, 2018 the last time they had it. But there's that kind of stigma and there's that different approach to how the world of soccer is supposed to go, where it's like, well, The World Cup is the international level, and it's the best players all representing their teams. If you can't win that one, you can't be considered the best, regardless of what you do at the club level. I feel like there's another thing. We've looked at the U.S. over these last couple friendlies. They got handled by Belgium. They lost 2-0 to Portugal the other day. And the replies that you're seeing on social media where it's, oh, the U.S. is going to get grouped. And that's not coming from the world. That's coming from American journalism and fans. And I'm just sitting here myself like, it's a friendly. We don't know who our 23 guys are. We don't know who our starting 11 is. We're experimenting. That's what these games are for. These guys don't play with each other all the time. Like, it's not like, oh, well, we have international level of sport and they're there constantly. They play with their clubs and then they play maybe 3-4 games internationally a year.
Yeah.
But it's almost like there's an aspect of that's not really understood in the States. Do you think that that's going to be something the world's going to have to deal with at the World Cup level, where being in a country like the U.S. or Mexico or Canada, it's going to be looked at a different way? Or do you think we're going to see something more or less the same from a media point of view?
I think it will be looked at differently, but I think that's kind of an amalgamation of things. I don't think it's solely because America's hosting it. I think obviously because America's one of the host countries, a lot of the media coverage is going to be from America. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I've noticed is that Americans, especially people that are outside of the sport, are very critical of America.
Oh yeah.
So but also with the expanded World Cup, the teams, the upsets that have already happened, it's just going to be and also the kind of landscape of football at the moment, it's just going to be a vastly different World Cup from an actual play style point of view, which is going to obviously change the media coverage. I think there's a lot of cynical media coverage over the state of football at the moment, which stems from a number of things. I think people are pretty critical of the quality of club football, especially around Europe at the moment, which it might just be a kind of cyclical thing. But, you know, you see so much media attention about how clubs are relying so much on set pieces and how the strength of the Premier League this year is not that good and everything like that. And
they're just saying, and this is coming from an Arsenal fan, so there's no bias to here whatsoever. They're just saying that because Arsenal hasn't bottled the league yet.
That is, yeah. I mean, there is that, and people I love to hate on Arsenal.
It's funny.
I think there is some, you know, there's no smoke without fire. There is some truth to it in that set pieces have become a much more prominent part of the game, and it's not just Arsenal. Arsenal are probably the highest profile culprits of it, but it stems. I mean, we got teams in our conference that rely on set pieces solely. And you see it all across club football. And I think that's going to be a big thing. That's another thing that's going to change this World Cup. I think set pieces are going to play a bigger role than maybe they have in the past, which is probably reflective of the state of club football, but also, you know, if you're a team and this is your first World Cup in ages and you're coming up against one of the big boys, France or Spain or something, and you're like, we don't have 11 guys at the talent of the other 11 guys. We're just going to sit in a low block and then just beat them either on the counter or with set pieces. And that comes with the expanded World Cup. There are going to be more of these mismatches that we haven't seen in the past, so it's going to be a bit more chaotic, kind of more defining moments. They're going to be less cohesive 90 minutes where it's 11 versus 11. It's going to be kind of moments that decide games more, just because some of these nations can't compete on a talent level because they haven't had the infrastructure, or they just don't have the people, they don't have the culture to kind of churn out the level of players that some of these big European and South American nations do. So, I mean, that's a very long-winded way of answering your questions. Yes, the media attention will be different, but it'll be from kind of a number of things.
And then talking about set pieces a little more too, I think one thing that does help those smaller teams in that aspect. The other thing you got to remember is that's one of the few times the game stops, and you can have a plan for that. Okay, this guy's taking the kick. He has the option to go to goal because I think he's close enough to hit it, or if it's farther away, this guy's going to play it in. He's got the best control on his crosses from wherever it is, or if it's up the middle, you know, maybe still he goes for goal because it's straight up the middle and a bit of an easier shot. But you can also say this guy's going to run near post. This guy's going to make an overlapping run. It's one of those few times during the game where you can say this is the plan of attack. Rest of the game, it's going, and you kind of got to be in position before the attack happens to make anything effective happen. You've already said that that's going to create a bit of a mismatch when it comes to these smaller teams. How much of an effect do you think that's going to have as far as underdog stories go going forward?
The set pieces, massively. I would not I am expecting a team to, and it might just be from the round of 16 into the quarters, but maybe it's a 1-0 game and a team's upset because, maybe the favourites had all of the ball for 90 minutes and the other team has got their head on the end of a corner and now it's 1-0 and they're through. And I think we're going to see a few of those. And I would not be. And then you have to start looking at, and I know I said the media are cynical about this. I'm cynical about this as well because I think the fact we're sitting here talking about who's going to be the best at set pieces is a bit of a disgrace to football. But
it's unfortunate because you don't want the game to be played like that. But the hard truth about it is these teams do it, and we keep seeing it working. Exactly,
and it's the reality of the game. Some teams will look at that and go, "That's how we're going to win the game." So I don't really care what people are going to say about it, and that's fair enough. And that's you look, and I was thinking about it. I'm not convinced by, say, the Netherlands. I don't think they have enough attacking threat to do much. I think they've got a few. They're a high profile. Cody Gakpo's a high profile player that's up top who I don't think is any good. But who am I to say really? But you look at their backline and the Dutchies are tall. You look in Van der Ven, Van Dijk. If they're putting corners in the box, they're bound to score a couple by getting their head on it.
Because that's when those guys go up.
Exactly. So I think there will be teams that overperform solely on set pieces. And also, I think there are teams that will not take advantage of that and will suffer. I think you would be stupid to be a team and not take advantage of that because you, A, need to be able to defend those, but you, B, need to look at other teams and go, right, well, everyone's doing this, so now we need to be good at this. And that's just the way football is. I don't think if it was easy enough to just play better football and win the game, Arsenal wouldn't be top of the league.
Yeah.
I think there will be games where it comes down to who's switched on the set pieces.
And it's crazy to think about that because back in the 1970 World Cup, total football, that's where that started. Rotation of positions don't really have a set spot. There's a little more overlapping run in that style of play. That wasn't a thing back then. Now we're seeing something kind of similar. Teams are trying to take advantage of set piece opportunities, and maybe we see people trying to take advantage of not even just we want to get the set pieces, but we know where we want to get the set pieces. We know where this guy likes to take it from. We know this guy's a better crosser from the right side. This guy, he's better on his left foot. It's looked at that specifically nowadays. Every technical little detail, like teams that are playing on grass right now, they tell their lawnsmen, don't cut the grass as short as we normally do. This team likes their through balls. Paint the fields shorter. Paint the line shorter. This team likes to use the wing a little more. It's crazy how down to the level that little bit of tactical play has gone. But you were talking about those upsets, so I want to bring you into my favorite part of this show. I've got the group stages here. I'm going to ask you what you think is going to happen with the group stages. And it's interesting because when we did this with Jake, the play-in teams hadn't been decided yet. So I told him we're going to stick to who has been set in stone.
Yeah.
You don't have that luxury here. They're set now, so you've got one more team to deal with in some of those groups. But I am curious to see how you feel about some of these different groups because these matchups, they're pretty interesting, I think, in some of these groups. But I'm going to start with Group A. We have Mexico, South Africa, South Korea, and then the Czech Republic.
I think, that's a tricky one to call. I think Mexico will win that solely off what I was saying before. I think they're used to the environment, they're used to the travel time, they're used to the climate. They just have that advantage.
And then for Group B now, Canada, Qatar, Switzerland, and then now it's Bosnia.
I would love to see Bosnia win it.
I think we're all rooting for it just a little bit.
They've got the momentum. Switzerland. I'm gonna call Switzerland on that one. But I think that's a tight group. I think that'll be a good one to watch.
Group C, Brazil, Morocco, Haiti, and then for the first time in a really long time, Scotland is in that group now for the World Cup.
Yeah. As much as I said earlier, I'm not that impressed by Brazil. I don't see Brazil not topping that group.
Group D, the United States, Paraguay, Australia, and now Turkey.
Right. I think it's between the States and Australia. I've been pretty impressed by what Australia have produced the last few years, so I'll go with Australia. And I know you're going to be disappointed to hear that, but
all right, we'll let that one slide.
Did Jake say the States for that one?
He actually came. He did, but he really likes Harry Kane, Tottenham, and all that. I think Poch being the manager now probably played into that a little bit, but
I think they would have revoked his citizenship as well if he hadn't said that. He was probably a bit scared.
We'll keep going on that one. You're not the first person that I've recorded with to say that it's not going to be the States, though, either. Those episodes will come out a little bit later.
I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised, but Oceania. I got to back the brothers in Australia.
Yeah, that's totally valid. I don't blame you there. Now, looking at Group E, this one, I think it's a little bit more of one of those one-sided groups, but being on the Western Hemisphere, that weather could play in a little bit too here, so you never know. Germany, Ivory Coast, Morocco, and then Ecuador. Yeah.
Germany, it will be Germany. Ecuador, I think, will have a bit. They're another team, and these South American teams are often like this. They're just willing to die for the badge. They'll do anything for a win, which I love, but I don't think they have the talent to beat a nation like Germany.
And then going into Group F, it's the Netherlands, Sweden, Tunisia, and then Japan.
I think it'll be the Netherlands. Sweden's one that I would look out for as a possible underdog. I think that's another one that'll be a good group to watch out for.
Looking at Group G, Belgium, Egypt, Iran, and then New Zealand.
To be honest, I think we could top. I think New Zealand could top that group, and it's going to sound biased, and it is biased. But
I can't call you out on that. You said the States weren't winning that group, and I
don't think I'm particularly impressed by any of the other teams in that group, and I think we have a good group this year. We got a lot of good young players, Ben Old and Ben Wayne, who's been smashing it in England, and guys like Alex Paulson, a few guys that I've played with that are just explosive. I think we've got a good chance.
And then even if you don't get that first spot there, that second one's kind of up for grabs.
That's it. I think that whole group's up for grabs. I really do. I think it could go any way. I think that we've got a really good chance to advance to the knockout stage for the first time ever. So I'm very excited for that.
Moving on to Group H, Spain, Cape Verde, Saudi Arabia, and Uruguay.
It'll be Spain, and Spain are one of my contenders to win it, so that's kind of a no-brainer.
Going on to Group I, France, Senegal, Iraq, and then Norway.
France, for the same reason as Spain, they're one of my top contenders. I don't think that ought to be a pretty easy one to call.
I think everyone's kind of got their eye on France for this one. Won it in 2018. We're that close to winning it in 2022.
Yeah.
And at that level, that's one of those teams that's usually pretty similar for the same starting 11.
Exactly.
Usually pretty similar starting 23.
And
or not starting 23, but 23 men on the roster.
I just think they are so good. They have so much talent. And there are a lot of guys that are the same guys that were in the 2018 World Cup. So they've played together for so many years, because that 2018 squad was so young that I just think the chemistry they have, the identity they have, the talent they have, their attacking power, I think they're going to be difficult to beat.
And then Group J, Argentina, Algeria, Austria, and Jordan.
It's another one that could kind of go anywhere. I'll say Argentina. I don't think they're going to be a contender to win the tournament. I think they're quite an aging squad.
And on top of that, a lot of those guys, they did it in 2022. They've finally checked that box in their career, and everyone says, "Oh, well, I want to do it again now." But at that age, you're kind of like, what else is there to do?
And I 100% agree with that. I do really think Lionel Scaloni, the manager, is very good tactically. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure how he's going to handle the kind of football that I'm expecting to be played at this World Cup.
Because it's one of those things you got to think of. Tactics only gets you so far. You need to be able to execute those tactics as well.
Yeah, and be able to adapt. And I think that's one of the things that the South Americans have usually been really good with, is having that kind of national identity where you're getting these players from young and they're being coached the same football all the way up to the national team. And I think that might be an issue the States have been having. I think there's probably a lack of identity where in these European and South American countries you've got these great young players, you know, Lamine Yamal and Pau Kabasi and these sort of players, that the step up to the national team is just so smooth because they've been doing the same thing the whole way through. Right. And I'm just not convinced the coaching has the continuity in the States, and it's probably because football's been growing so much in the States recently, it hasn't really had the reason to. And there are great young players in the States, guys like Kevin Sullivan, who's been killing it. His brother, I've heard, is good. Jackson, we've got heaps of good players coming up, but I'm not sure that the continuity of coaching is there. But the point of that was that national identity might actually kind of play against you in this World Cup, because we've got this identity of how we're going to play, but can we now adapt to when different kind of football is being played and we now can't play how we want to play? And
then going on to Group K, Portugal, DR Congo, Uzbekistan, and then Colombia.
Portugal. And I've watched a couple Portugal games. I really like how they play.
They looked pretty good on Tuesday against the States. And you can throw that asterisk in there. Oh, it's the United States. They don't really play the game the way it needs to be played, or they don't play it at the level it needs to be played. You watch that game and sit down. Portugal looked great. I've got no problem saying that.
I think Portugal...
Ronaldo wasn't even in the lineup at that point. Whether he ends up being in the 23, that's still up in the air. But
that is up in the air.
That's without him, and that's the big question mark there. A lot of people are going, oh, well, that's been their center cog for so long. What are they going to do without him? They looked fine to me on Tuesday.
I fully agree, and I watched quite a lot of that game. I thought they looked good, and they've got... Cancelo's a guy that I look at and go, I think inverting your fullbacks is going to be massive at this World Cup, and he's a guy that can just come inside and run the game. He's one of the reasons, I think. And obviously guys like Vitinha, and they've got so much talent in that squad.
Felix is out there too.
They've got so much talent in that squad.
And then that last group, Group L, England, Croatia, Ghana, and Panama.
Can I guess who Simo said for this one?
He may or may not have said football's coming home at one point.
Football's not coming home. England's biggest strength is convincing the whole nation that they might win it.
This is the year.
I'm still going to say England will top that group, but they're not winning the whole tournament.
You don't think so?
No, I don't at all. And I'm happy to say I want this clip to be brought up to Simo when they don't win it.
And then the last thing I'm going to ask you before we call it a day, you've brought up a couple of your contenders. Who's your one? Who do you got winning it this year?
I think it will be France. I have been trying to find a way not to say that because it's just boring.
I don't think anyone wants to see the same team go.
Third World Cup final in a row. But I think France and Spain are definitely my top two, and I think they'll be most people's top two. I really want to see upsets, and I want to see a team in the final that really no one expected. But
I want to see Scotland go all the way.
Scotland
all the way.
That's
phenomenal. What I'd love to see.
Let's go Scotland to the moon. No, I just don't see how France are going to lose games. I really don't.
Well, I appreciate everybody taking the time to join us here. We're going to do as many more episodes as we can before the World Cup. We're going to try to keep this rolling for as long as we can. Keep an eye out for our YouTube channel. That's where everything's going to be posted. We're working on getting audio posted to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, everything like that too, so that you can just listen instead of having to watch. Keep an eye out for our socials. We're on Instagram and Facebook at the 26 Touchline. But for Grainger Scott, my name is Jacob Grobelby, and we will see you guys next time.